A man facing an overwhelming challenge and the ridicule of an entire town. Everyone thought he would break. But what happened when a father's love for his daughter was stronger than his fear? Get ready for a story of hidden secrets and a discovery that would change their lives forever. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to you. Leo Valentine's world was built on two things: his 8-year-old daughter, Maya, and the memory of his wife. Since Sarah's passing 2 years ago, life had been a series of bills he couldn't quite pay and quiet nights trying to mend a grief he couldn't quite name. He worked as a freelance graphic designer, a career chosen for his flexibility, but it meant feast or famine. Lately, it had been a famine. The letter from the law firm of Henderson and Birch was an anomaly. Leo had no family left. Sarah had been an only child, and her parents were gone. His own parents had passed years ago, leaving him nothing but memories. The meeting with the stern, elderly lawyer, Mr. Henderson, was brief and bewildering. "You've inherited a property," Henderson said, adjusting his spectacles. "Blackwood Manor. From your great-uncle, Arthur Blackwood." Leo had a vague childhood memory of a reclusive, eccentric old man his parents had whispered about. The crazy uncle. His father had called him. Lives in that mausoleum on the hill, hoarding junk. "The estate is significant," Henderson continued, his tone implying the opposite. "But it comes with considerable back taxes and maintenance liabilities. It's been vacant for 15 years. The town has opinions about it." Driving into the sleepy town of Ravens Crest with Maya chattering excitedly in the passenger seat, Leo felt the eyes on their beat-up sedan. At the local diner, the Grizzly Spoon, the conversation died when they walked in. The waitress, a woman named Bev with a beehive hairdo and a permanent frown, pointedly wiped down their table with extra vigor. "You the ones going up to the Blackwood place?" she asked, not making eye contact. "Yes, ma'am," Leo said, forcing a smile. "Just inherited it." Bev snorted. "Inherited a headache is more like it. Place is cursed." Old man Blackwood was touched in the head, filled the house floor to ceiling with garbage. No one's been brave or foolish enough to step foot in there since he died. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a gossipy whisper. "They say his ghost still wanders the halls, protecting his trash." Maya's eyes went wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. Later, as they stood at the rusted iron gate, Leo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Blackwood Manor wasn't just a house. It was a monument to decay. The windows were like blind eyes, and the wind whistled through broken panes, creating a low, mournful moan. "Daddy," Maya whispered, clutching his hand. "It sounds sad." Leo's heart sank. This wasn't a blessing. It was a trap. The back taxes were more than he made in a year. He couldn't sell it. Who would buy a haunted house? He was mocked by the townsfolk and burdened with a white elephant. That night, in a cramped motel room, Maya drew a picture of a big, smiling house under a rainbow. "Maybe it's just lonely, Daddy. Like we are." Leo looked at his daughter's hopeful face and made a decision. He had nothing left to lose. They would face the haunted house together. Whispers in the dust. The air inside Blackwood Manor was thick and stale, tasting of decayed wood, old paper, and the faint, metallic scent of rust. Leo's flashlight beam danced across a landscape of shadows and towering, sheet-draped shapes. Maya clung to his jeans, her small fingers gripping the fabric tightly. "Hello," Leo called out, his voice swallowed by the immense, cluttered space. Only silence answered, profound and heavy. The ground floor was a labyrinth. Narrow pathways snaked between teetering piles of newspapers dating back to the 1950s, stacks of mildewed books, and mysterious objects hidden under yellowed sheets. It was a physical manifestation of a mind that never let anything go. Bev from the diner wasn't wrong. It looked like a hoarder's paradise. "It's not garbage, Daddy," Maya said, her voice small but sure. She pointed to a dust-covered vase on a mantelpiece. "That's pretty." Leo smiled sadly. To him, it was all junk, a physical manifestation of the hopeless situation he was in. The sheer scale of the cleanup was unimaginable. It would take a fortune just to hire a dumpster crew. Their first day was spent cautiously exploring the main hall and a dusty parlor. Leo found a stack of old financial ledgers, their pages filled with Arthur Blackwood's cramped, frantic handwriting. List of purchases, amounts paid, bizarre annotations. Item 742, secured, must hide its brilliance. Leo shook his head. The ramblings of a lonely old man. The townsfolk's ridicule continued. A trip to the hardware store for cleaning supplies turned into a spectacle. The clerk, a young man with a sneer, rang up his buckets and bleach. "Good luck with the ghosts," he said with a hollow laugh. "And the rats. Heard they're the size of cats up there." Leo just nodded, too proud and too tired to engage. The tension was a constant, knot in his stomach. He was spending the last of his savings on this futile endeavor. And for what? To prove a point to people who didn't care? The real conflict, however, was internal. Every creak of the floorboards, every scuttling sound in the walls, made him question his decision. Was he being a responsible father? Or was he dragging his daughter into a dangerous, delusional fantasy? That night, back at the motel, he stared at a spreadsheet on his laptop. The numbers were red and unforgiving. They had 1, maybe 2 weeks before the money ran out completely. The emotional turning point came on the 3rd day. Maya, who was surprisingly adaptable, had claimed a small, sunlit corner of the kitchen. She was diligently wiping dust off a set of old ceramic tiles that formed a mural on the wall. As she cleaned, a pattern emerged, not a random design, but a map of the stars. "Look, Daddy, it's the Big Dipper." Leo walked over, and for the first time, he didn't just see dirt. He saw craftsmanship. He saw detail. He saw value. This wasn't a mass-produced item. It was hand-painted, beautiful even under the grime. Later, while moving a stack of magazines, a framed photograph fell and shattered on the floor. Cursing, Leo bent to pick it up. It was a picture of a much younger Arthur Blackwood, standing proudly next to a handsome man Leo recognized from his own family photos, his grandfather. They had their arms around each other, smiling broadly in front of this very house. It wasn't a house of horrors then. It was a home filled with family and light. On the back, in his grandfather's handwriting, was an inscription. To Arthur, the best brother and the keenest eye for beauty a man could ask for. Never stop collecting. Collecting. The word echoed in Leo's mind. He looked around a crowded, dark room, but now his perspective had shifted. What if it wasn't junk? What if his great-uncle wasn't a crazy hoarder, but a collector? The collector's code. The glint of gold sent a jolt through Leo, so powerful it was almost physical. He fumbled with the dusty sheet, yanking it completely away in a cloud of motes. Maya gasped. It wasn't a large statue, but a breathtakingly intricate artifact about 3 feet tall. It appeared to be a stylized bird, an eagle or a hawk, crafted from what looked like solid gold and inlaid with vibrant, colored stones. Lapis lazuli for the wings, deep red carnelian for the eyes. It was unlike anything Leo had ever seen outside of a museum. "Is it a treasure, Daddy?" Maya whispered, her fear forgotten, replaced by awe. I don't know, sweetheart," Leo stammered, his heart hammering against his ribs. He reached out a trembling hand, not to touch it, but to feel the space around it, as if testing its reality. This wasn't junk. This was priceless. The sneering clerk, the gossiping waitress. They were wrong. Arthur Blackwood wasn't a madman. He was a savant. The house wasn't a tomb of garbage. It was a vault. A wave of shame washed over Leo for ever having thought otherwise. The discovery changed everything. The cleaning mission became an archaeological dig. Leo started a systematic search, no longer just shoving things aside, but examining them. He found boxes of what he thought were common rocks that, when washed, revealed themselves to be raw, uncut geodes sparkling with amethyst and quartz. A stack of rolled-up canvases, dismissed as amateur art, turned out to include a landscape of the signature that made Leo's breath catch, A. Bierstadt. The ledgers were no longer the ramblings of a madman. They were a cryptic catalog. Leo pored over them every night at the motel, cross-referencing the item numbers with objects he found. Item 309, acquired Cairo, 61. heart of the desert. He found item 309 the next day, an exquisite scarab bracelet of gold and turquoise. The external conflict, however, was heating up. His presence at Blackwood Manor was attracting the wrong kind of attention. The town mayor, a slick man named Gerald Hopkins, paid a visit. He stood on the porch, not bothering to hide his disdain for the peeling paint. "Mr. Valentine," Hopkins said, not offering his hand, "this property is a blight on Raven's Crest, an eyesore and a safety hazard. These back taxes are considerable. If you can't bring it up to code and settle the debt, the town will have no choice but to seize the property and demolish it." He gave Leo a 30-day ultimatum. The pressure, which had momentarily lifted, crashed down with even greater force. He had a month to prove the house's worth. But how? If he revealed what he was finding, word would spread, and he'd be vulnerable to theft or worse. He was sitting on a potential fortune, but had no way to access it legally or safely. The tension was paralyzing. Every stranger's car that slowed down outside the gate felt like a threat. Every conversation at the grocery store felt like an interrogation. He trusted no one. The emotional core of the chapter revolves around a late-night conversation with Maya. She finds him slumped over the ledgers, his head in his hands, overwhelmed. "The bad man want to break our house?" she asked. "He might, baby," Leo said, his voice thick with exhaustion. Maya climbed onto his lap and pointed to a phrase Arthur had scribbled in the margin of a ledger over and over. "Veritas vice." What does that mean? Leo, who'd taken Latin in high school, sounded it out. Truth by sight, or truth isn't seeing. He looked from the phrase to his daughter's innocent, believing face, and then around the cluttered room. Truth isn't seeing. He had been looking at the house all wrong. Everyone had. Arthur hadn't just been hiding his collection from thieves. He'd been hiding it in plain sight, camouflaging masterpieces as mundane clutter. The truth of their value was revealed only to those with the patience and respect to truly see. The chapter ends on a cliffhanger of revelation and danger. Following a hunch in the ledger, item 001, the key is not a key. Leo finds a false panel at the back of the great fireplace. Behind it is a small, heavy safe, but as he kneels to examine it, headlights sweep across the front window. A car is pulled into the long, overgrown driveway. It's nearly midnight. No one should be here. The uninvited guests. Leo's blood ran cold. He quickly shoved the sheet back over the Golden Hawk statue and blew out the single lantern they were using for light, plunging the room into darkness. Maya upstairs now. "Be quiet," he whispered, his voice tight with fear. He heard her small footsteps quickly pad up the grand staircase. Peering through a crack in the boarded-up window, Leo saw two figures emerge from a beat-up pickup truck. He recognized them. Local guys in their 20s, brothers known for causing trouble. Jake and Cody Miller. They were carrying a crowbar and a flashlight. "Told you he was here." "Saw his car," one of them, Jake, muttered. "Old man Blackwood's crazy nephew. Probably in there talking to the ghosts." "Let's just grab something small and get out," Cody replied, sounding nervous. "This place give me the creeps." They weren't professionals. They were opportunistic vandals, thinking the house was an easy target for scrap metal or anything they could pawn. But that made them unpredictable and dangerous. Leo's mind raced. He was outnumbered. He couldn't call the police. The town sheriff was the mayor's brother-in-law. He was on his own. He heard them jimmying the old lock on the kitchen door. The screech of metal giving way was horrifically loud in the silent night. He had to protect Maya. He had to protect Arthur's legacy. As the two intruders stumbled into the dark kitchen, their flashlight beams cutting erratic paths through the clutter, Leo made a split-second decision. He remembered the house's quirks. The specific floorboard on the third step of the main stairs that let out a sound like a gunshot when stepped on. He crept to the bottom of the stairs and waited. As the brothers moved cautiously into main hall, their light glancing over the sheet-draped shapes, Leo took a deep breath and slammed his hand down on the wooden banister, creating a loud thump. "What was that?" Cody yelped. Then, from upstairs, a high, mournful wail echoed through the house. It was Maya, terrified, but brilliantly mimicking the ghost stories they'd heard. The sound was chillingly effective. Jake swung his flashlight beam toward the staircase, his bravado crumbling. The hell? Leo seized the moment. He grabbed a heavy, cloth-covered object, a marble bust, as it turned out, and shoved it off a nearby table. It crashed to the floor with a tremendous, echoing slam. That was the final straw for the intruders. "It's him! It's Blackwood!" Jake yelled, pure superstitious terror in his voice. They didn't wait to see more. They turned and fled, scrambling over each other to get back out the kitchen door, their truck roaring to life and speeding down the driveway moments later. Leo stood in the darkness, adrenaline coursing through him, his hands shaking. He rushed upstairs to find Maya in a hallway closet, her eyes wide but dry. "I scared them, Daddy," she said, a tiny smile of pride breaking through her fear. He hugged her tightly, his brave, brilliant girl. The incident was a wake-up call. The mayor's threat was bureaucratic, but this was a direct physical danger. He couldn't stay here unprotected. He needed help. He needed an expert. He needed to know what he truly had. The next morning, he made a decision, using a payphone at the edge of town. He didn't trust anyone enough to use his traceable cell. He placed a call to the one person he found online who seemed both reputable and discreet, Dr. Althea Finch, a professor of art history and a specialist in cataloging private collections for museums. Her bio said she appreciated the unique stories objects tell. He described the situation in vague terms: an inherited property with potentially significant contents and a pressing need for a discreet, professional appraisal. To his immense relief, she was intrigued and agreed to come out from the city the next day. The chapter ends with Leo waiting anxiously by the gate. A sleek, modern SUV pulls up, and a woman in her 60s with sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor steps out. Dr. Finch surveys the looming manor, then looks at Leo's desperate, hopeful face. She doesn't see a crazy man in a haunted house. She sees a client. "Show me," is all she says. The revelation. Dr. Althea Finch moved to Blackwood Manor not with the townsfolk's superstitious dread or Leo's overwhelmed confusion, but with the quiet, focused intensity of a predator on the scent. Her eyes, sharp behind stylish glasses, missed nothing. She didn't see junk. She saw layers of history, potential, and context. She started with the ledger. Leo handed it to her, and her eyebrows shot up. "This isn't a simple inventory. It's a travelogue, a biography of a collection. Cairo, 61. Athens, 59. Barcelona, 65. Your uncle was a world traveler." Then she turned her attention to the objects. Leo showed her the Golden Hawk statue first. Dr. Finch didn't gasp. She went very, very still. She pulled a loupe from her pocket and examined it for a full 5 minutes in silence. "This is not a treasure, Mr. Valentine," she finally said, her voice hushed with reverence. "This is a treasure, a Ptolemaic-era ritual artifact. I've only seen drawings of something like this. It was believed to be lost in the 1950s. She looked at him. "If this is authentic, it is incalculably valuable." The day became a whirlwind of stunning revelations. The Bierstadt painting was confirmed. A small, dusty rug tossed over a chair was identified as a pristine 17th century Persian Isfahan. A crate filled with what looked like cheap costume jewelry was, in fact, Art Deco pieces by renowned designers like Susan Belprin and Jean Dupree. Dr. Finch worked with methodical precision, photographing, taking notes, and making quiet calls on her satellite phone to colleagues around the world. The suspense for Leo was agonizing. He needed a number, a value, something to fight the mayor with. The external conflict reached a boiling point mid-afternoon. Mayor Hopkins' car pulled up, followed by a local news van. The mayor, smelling a publicity opportunity, had decided to stage a press conference about the cleaning up of the town's historic blight, right on Leo's doorstep. Leo stood on the porch, facing the mayor and a smirking camera crew. Dr. Finch remained inside, unseen. "Mr. Valentine," Hopkins announced grandly, "the 30-day clock is ticking. The people of Ravenscrest deserve to know this danger will be handled. Do you have a plan, or will the town be forced to take action?" Leo, feeling a confidence he hadn't known in years, stood tall. "The only danger here, Mayor, is your rush to judge something you don't understand." Hopkins laughed condescendingly. Understand? I understand a crumbling house and a mountain of debt. I understand eyesore. Just then, Dr. Finch emerged from the front door. She held herself with an authority that immediately silenced the crowd. The camera, intrigued, swung to her. "Mayor Hopkins," she said, her voice crisp and clear. "My name is Dr. Althea Finch. I am the head of antiquities at the Carleton Museum. I suggest you take a step back." She turned to the news camera, and in that moment, she wasn't just talking to the mayor. She was addressing the world. This eyesore is not a blight. It is one of the most significant private collections of art and antiquities to be discovered in the last 50 years. What Mr. Valentine has inherited is not a burden. It is a piece of world heritage. The mayor's jaw dropped. The cameraman, realizing he was on to something far bigger than a local zoning story, kept rolling. Dr. Finch delivered the line that would change everything. A preliminary conservative estimate of the core collection's value would be in the vicinity of $88 million. The number hung in the air, absolute and staggering. The mayor looked like he'd been struck by lightning. The news reporter's eyes went wide with dollar signs. Leo felt the ground shift under his feet. It was real. The chapter ends with Leo watching the mayor's defeated retreat, the news van now desperate for an interview with him. He looks back at the dark windows of Blackwood Manor, which no longer looks haunted, but hallowed. The world is about to descend upon him, and his life will never be the same again. A legacy unfolded. The news of the Raven's Crest treasure exploded like a bomb. Overnight, the sleepy, mocking town became the center of a media hurricane. Satellite trucks lined the narrow Main Street. Reporters from national networks camped outside the iron gates of Blackwood Manor, their cameras trained on a house now dubbed the Miracle Mansion. Leo Valentine, the poor single dad, was thrust into a blinding spotlight. His inbox was flooded with requests. Interview offers from morning shows, letters from auction houses like Sotheby's and Christie's pleading for the right to handle the collection, emails from long-lost friends and distant relatives suddenly appearing. The external conflict had completely flipped. The mayor's threats were gone, replaced by fawning apologies and offers of municipal support. The same clerk who had sneered at him now asked for his autograph. The internal conflict, however, became more complex. This newfound wealth was a tidal wave, and Leo struggled not to drown. His every instinct was to protect Maya from the frenzy. He hired a team of security consultants to secure the property and a sharp, ethical lawyer to handle the onslaught of offers. His first priority, guided by Dr. Finch, was to properly inventory, authenticate, and insure every item. The house was suddenly filled with a respectful, hushed army of experts, conservators, art historians, appraisers, all treating the place with the reverence of cathedral. The emotional core of the chapter is Leo's journey to understand the man behind the collection. With the ledgers decoded, he and Dr. Finch pieced together Arthur Blackwood's story. He wasn't a recluse. He was a visionary, a world-traveling connoisseur with a brilliant eye, who had made his fortune in post-war investments and spent it all on art he loved. He'd withdrawn from the world not out of madness, but out of a fear that his life's work would be misunderstood, sold off, or separated. He had chosen Leo not at random. The inscription on the photo, "Never Stop Collecting," was a clue. Leo's grandfather had shared the passion. Leo himself had been an art student before life had forced him into more practical pursuits. Arthur had seen a spark of that same appreciation in his great-nephew, even from a distance. The inheritance wasn't just of objects. It was of a legacy, a passion, a responsibility. The biggest decision loomed: what to do with it all. The conservative estimate was $88 million, but the true value, both monetary and historical, was immense. Leo found his answer in a final, hidden letter from Arthur, tucked inside the now-open safe. It was addressed to him. "To my heir," it began. "If you're reading this, you saw past the dust. You saw the truth. These pieces, they do not belong to one man. They belong to the world. They belong to history. My greatest joy was finding them. My greatest hope is that you will find joy in sharing them. Do not be their jailer, as I was. Be their liberator." Leo knew what he had to do. He wouldn't be a hoarder of treasure, but a steward. He announced a plan that stunned the art world. The majority of the collection would be donated on long-term loan to major museums across the country. A small portion would be sold at auction to create a massive trust fund for Maya, ensure his own financial security, and, most importantly, fully restore Blackwood Manor to its original glory, turning it into a public museum and study center for art history students, creating jobs and putting Raven's Crest on the map for a positive reason. The chapter ends with Leo and Maya no longer in a motel but in a rented cottage in town, looking at architectural plans for the manor's restoration. It's no longer a haunted house, but a home for a legacy. Maya points to the drawing of a new, bright library. "Can this be my room?" she asks. For the first time, Leo feels not the weight of burden, but the lightness of purpose. The key was not a key. 5 years later, the camera sweeps over a transformed Blackwood Manor. The paint is fresh, the gardens are manicured and open to the public, and the once creaking iron gate now stands proudly open. A tasteful sign reads, "The Blackwood Valentine Museum of Art and History." Show montage of visitors touring the beautiful, well-lit galleries. School children looking in awe at the Golden Hawk statue, now displayed in a climate control case. Researchers studying in the new library. The story comes full circle. Leo Valentine, now 43, stands confidently giving a talk to a group of students in the main hall. He is no longer the tired, overwhelmed dad, but a respected patron of the arts, his passion reignited. He speaks not about monetary value, but about history, beauty, and seeing the extraordinary in the seemingly ordinary. Maya, now a vibrant teenager, is by his side, pointing out a detail on the star map tiles in the kitchen to a younger child, echoing the moment she had with her father years ago. The house is filled with light and life, its haunting moans replaced by the hum of conversation and wonder. The internal and external conflicts have been resolved. The town ridicule has turned into immense pride. The Grizzly Spoon diner sells Blackwood Burger and Valentine Shakes. Bev, the waitress, is now the museum's head of visitor services, her gruffness replaced with fierce pride. The final scene is of Leo and Maya in Arthur's old study, now a bright office. On the wall hangs a photo of Arthur and Leo's grandfather, restored and framed. Leo looks at it. He was alone for so long, Leo says softly. He thought the collection was his greatest achievement, but he was wrong. Maya looks at him. What was? Leo puts his arm around her. This, bringing us here, bringing us together, giving us a purpose. The treasure was never the gold or the paintings, Maya. It was always us. It was always family. The key mentioned in the ledger was a physical key to a lock. It was a key of perspective, of love, of patience. The key was not a key. It was a father's love for his daughter and a great-uncle's faith in the future. The camera pulls back on the window of the beautiful, vibrant manor, no longer haunted by ghosts, but guarded by the loving memory of the family that brought it back to life. From ridicule to reverence, from burden to blessing. Leo Valentine was mocked for inheriting a haunted house, but he discovered something far more powerful than ghosts, a legacy of love, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right person to truly see it. If you believe in second chances and the hidden treasures in your own life, share this story of hope with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe for more stories of everyday transformation.